Hello, my amazing viewers, and welcome back to Obas Trending Gist. Today, we are diving deep into a recent Arise News morning show discussion that truly laid bare the state of our nation. The ever-incisive Rufai began by scrutinizing our agricultural sector, questioning the sustainability of foreign aid and highlighting critical gaps in our value chain. Dr. Abati then chimed in, holding our leaders accountable on various fronts, from the optics of presidential welcome to the pressing issue of insecurity and economic hardship. They both presented powerful arguments demanding more than just rhetoric from our government. Let's get right into the highlights. So sit back and take a watch.
All right. Okay, Rufai, a few stories here this morning. What's headline news across the nation? We look at the economy. We also look at agriculture, potential for agriculture with the EU investment, and a few other stories. Your take on this story, please.
Okay, so real quickly. It's not a bad thing when you have donor agencies bringing some money in agriculture. But the question is, for a very important tool like agriculture, is it sustainable? EU and FAO started this hand-in-hand initiative, I think around 2019. EU is a key funder and sponsor of it. They're putting some cash into it. They're pledging about 80 million. It's sort of like their give back, their charity arm. It's across parts of sub-Saharan Africa, some parts of Asia, Afghanistan, and some other countries have benefited. But you see, for us to be able to scale agriculture, we must be able to look for the problems we have in our value chain and see how we can develop. Okay, number one value chain, animal husbandry. Animal husbandry, animal production and health, animal breeding and genetics and everything. What is our ecosystem in that regard? How much is the Nigerian government putting into that? Yeah, you set up a Ministry of Livestock. It's not just about setting the Ministry of Livestock. What are you doing to animal breeding? Do you know that if you cultivate breeds of animals that are trypanotolerant or have some very good traits, you can sell them for increased amount? A vial of animal semen from an exotic breed animal costs a lot. What are you doing as regards artificial insemination? I did a lot of work on artificial insemination. So I know that that's a big viable market. So what are you doing as regards extension in animal breeding and genetics, extension in animal veterinary science and things like that? That's a core area. That's a multi-billion-dollar industry if it's properly harnessed. Then you now move to the crop parts, which has to do with cropping outlay, that has to do with security, insecurity, the farmers are not getting enough security, the cropping, access to land. I heard they were talking about land banking and things like that, and storage of food post-harvest. Because you have close to about 50% or even more, some literature will report, of post-harvest. And that means you're not producing enough because you're not getting enough yield per hectare, and you're also wasting the food. See, the investment of foreign bodies will be minimal. It is you as a government that will be able to make that investment. Then you now move to another section of agriculture which has to do with the logistical value chain. What are we doing as regards that? Cold chain storage and things like that. Take, for instance, anytime I'm in Abuja, I get fresher produce than when I'm in Lagos. Why? Because from there, it's closer to the farms, rather than when they bring it to the liquor. So why is it that the strawberries that are planted in Jos, why is it difficult for it to get down south here? So that's logistics. How do we even transport our tomatoes? You see the way our tomatoes have been transported to Mile 12 in a very deplorable condition. Open air bags and things like that. Is that the best way? Can we do a cold chain storage for things like that? You see, so these are conversations. And those investments, the EU will pledge money, but they're not the one that get the job done. And that's why government needs to have a symbiotic relationship. Hence, the Minister Baguda was talking about the need for investments. So the question we should ask this government is, where are the investments you claim that was coming in? With this investment, we've heard many false stories. Just like we heard the Maersk investment at some point. Now we've heard, okay, the Saudi Arabia will pop some money in Olam. Okay, that's good. They've bought some portion of that. But what about the other investments? Okay, we hear that the Brazilian investment here, they've started talking to Ogun State as regards starting. That's good. But where are the viable investments? Because you see, in these ecosystems I've talked about, the animal breeding and genetics ecosystem, the value chain, the storage and production and everything, you need investment. Agriculture is a multi-billion-dollar investment. And this can also help to be able to diversify away from the law for crude oil and everything. Because when you look at it, in the next 50, 60 years, what will be the lot of crude oil? Will it be sustainable? with the new emerging energies and things like that. And Mr. Dogara saying that, oh, President Tinubu inherited debris. I don't like it when they say that. Because you know he inherited debris, but this same President Tinubu, while campaigning, supported Buhari and said, we'll continue with the policies. So you knew you were coming in, you knew we had ways and means that were collected, that this government said they collected because they weren't able to fight COVID. And they spent billions to buy vaccines and some other things. Where is the accountability threshold as regards that? But at the same time, President Tinubu too has also, in the bid of stopping that problem, incurred more debts that we have to pay. And when he keeps saying, oh, we have to go through these hard times, where is the accountability in all of this? The first thing the president said he was going to do, he bought a jet for himself, for good measure. So you are buying a jet for yourself, people are suffering, you are running 3 concurrent budget cycles, there's a lot of problem on ground, there's massive level of insecurity, the economy, you have devalued the currency, things are not any better for businesses and all of that. There are higher interest rates, okay, probably now maybe the CBN will start reducing rate because they've seen a reduction in inflation numbers. So you have all these multi-problems, and you're saying people should be patient, oh, it takes time for reform. But on your own side, the things you ought to also do to correspond with that reform, we're not seeing it to a large extent. So hence the gulf. So you see, I think it was Ralph Waldo Emerson that said something. He said, what you do speaks so loud, I can't hear what you say. What a lot of Nigeria are seeing is the optics of you bought yourself a private jet and other things. Till today, you've not told us the accountability as regards the humanitarian minister. Has that case been solved? You say, okay, you are paying, what's it called, conditional cash transfer. Who are those feeling the impact?
That was quite the exposition from Rufai, wasn't it? He zeroed in on the critical role of donor agencies like the EU and the FAO, acknowledging their €80 million commitment, but quickly shifted the focus to the sustainability of such aid. His core argument was clear. For agriculture to truly scale in Nigeria, we need to address deep-seated problems within our value chain. He meticulously broke down issues in animal husbandry. You know, animal husbandry is his area of specialty. From breeding and genetics to the need for artificial insemination and the challenges in crop production, including post-harvest losses, security and access to land. Rufai's message resonated loud and clear. Foreign money is good, but without robust government investment and a structured ecosystem to tackle these intrinsic problems, true progress remains elusive. It's about empowering our own, not just relying on charity. So let us watch the second part of the video. Watch this.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Well, the big story of the day, it will appear to me, is a report that the President of Nigeria has returned from his working leave to France and the United Kingdom. When he arrived yesterday, he was received at the airport. We didn't see the usual culprits, the people who leave their states and relocate to Abuja to go and do welcoming and departure ceremonies for the president. The sculptures of the airport when the president is traveling or returning. But we saw one governor from Nasarawa State, Sule, that's his name, but he was there, maybe perhaps he will claim proximity. Yeah. The Senate president was there. But this ritual of governors going to welcome and, bid farewell to the president, I think it should stop. Or we'll find a way around it. Those governors should stay in their states and work on behalf of their people. They should not ridicule themselves any further. However, President Tinubu is back. We welcome him. But he has returned at a time where there are urgent national issues that he has to address and which must engage his attention. First is insecurity. While President Tinubu was away, we had issues in Borno State. All of a sudden, 4 or 5 local governments in Borno State became unsafe. The INEC voter registration process had to be relocated to Maiduguri. As you speak, Maiduguri is overcongested, which raises questions about the challenge of insecurity. In Katsina, community leaders reportedly met with some bandits, some criminals, to use the word that the Tinubu government itself adopted. And we saw the criminals, carrying AK-47 and all of that, and being negotiated with yesterday. That should be a subtle reminder to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that as he returns, he needs to also focus on the problem of insecurity. In Zamfara State, there were also reports of bandits, insurgents, terrorists trying to overwhelm 4 local governments. But it took the gallantry of the Nigerian armed forces to overwhelm them. So that's one issue. The second issue during his 10-day absence was the point raised about the attempt to sell Nigeria's equity in joint ventures, particularly with Renaissance Energy, Wando, and Seplat. We discussed that yesterday. And we said yesterday that when Atiku Abubakar, Waziri Adamawa, former vice president, raised the point about transparency and accountability, we said that he was raising a basic principle that is unexceptionable. Can President Tinubu please address that when he returns, as he returns, to make sure that personal interest does not override sovereign interest, even when we are talking about privatization in that particular sector? The third point will be rivers. Ibakete Ibas, Vice Admiral, is beating his chest and saying he has introduced stability in River State. I wrote an informed essay on the back page of This Day yesterday, where I said, no, he has not introduced any peace. What he has introduced is a piece of the graveyard. But more importantly, the people of River State are saying that the 6-month tenure should be audited. How did Ibokete Ibas, how did he spend the money of the people of River State? He said he was going to rebuild the House of Assembly. Did he do it? How many people did he consult with? So all of that will be within the same line of transparency and accountability. Now about agric reforms. Look, government always uses agric reform as some point of propaganda. Under President Obasanjo, as head of state, military head of state, we had, Operation Feed the Nation, right? Okay, what came out of it? After him, we had Shagari talking about green revolution. After him, we had Babangida talking about, NADA, something called NADA. Then we had President Jonathan when we had, in my own estimation, the best minister of agriculture and rural development that we have ever had, in the person of Akinwumi Additional, who went ahead and further proved himself at the African Development Bank. After that, we had a president, Muhammadu Buhari, who slept through the 8 years and did nothing about agriculture. And now we have a Tinubu president who is talking about agriculture. But what is he doing about agricultural reforms? Now, we are being told, we have money from a foreign agency. They are going to give us more money. Okay, it's not just about giving us more money. How is the Ministry of Agri funded? These are questions. 2, President Tinubu has been talking about tractors. One man came from Belarus, or wherever he came from, an old classmate of Nigeria. Yes. He showed up, they said he has supplied tractors. Now, the issue is, why are those tractors not supplied to the states, even subsidized? Because the federal government of Nigeria is not the one going to do it. We have spoken on this platform about Lagos State, Zamfara, Niger State, all of them coming together and saying we are committed to agriculture. Now, what is the federal government doing to support them? Tractors are like airplanes. You have collected tractors from Belarus. They are there. If you don't deploy them, those tractors will go to waste because they are mechanical structures. So why is it a problem to collaborate with the state governments and put these tractors to use? The other issue that they will have to deal with will be about access to land. The federal government doesn't own land. Land under the Land Use Act is held in trust by the states. Now, what are they doing to make sure that these state governments provide land to make agriculture possible? So all this political propaganda about agriculture without taking the consequential steps is just, what it is, propaganda. I don't want to use a stronger word. Now, let me go quickly to Minister Bagudu, Minister of National Planning and Budget. He is an investment banker. So if he says Nigeria needs $100 billion in terms of investment annually, he knows what he's talking about, probably. Okay, so we ask him, all these trips that we have been supporting, we say President Tinubu is the chief foreign policy officer, is the chief marketer of the country. Okay, how much investment has this government been able to bring? They went to Qatar. How much has Qatar brought? They went to Saudi Arabia. How much has Saudi Arabia brought? They went to India. How much have they brought home? They went to Japan. How much have you received? They went to Brazil. We need a proper audit of what has been brought in terms of investment and sectorally. It's not enough to just tell us that investments, we need this investment, we need that investment. So what are they bringing? However, the rub of it is about local investment. I think the Nigerian government under President Tinubu contradicts itself when it says we're looking for foreign investment, we need industrialization. When local investors are being put under pressure, and that takes me to the issue of Dangote refinery. Look at the stress that Dangote refinery is going through. These are local people trying to invest in the environment and who believe in Nigeria and Africa and who say that the best way that you can develop the country is for you to support your own private sector. The people who are trying to invest in Nigeria, they have been subjected to a lot of hardship. Now that the president is back, the investment that they are looking for overseas, which they have not brought, we only just have promises. We have not seen the impact. We have not seen the effect. The people who are trying to invest in this country, they deserve support. The harassment that Dangote refinery is receiving should be another issue that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should address as he returns to work this morning.
Following Rufai's insightful breakdown, Dr. Abati stepped in with his characteristic candor, broadening the conversation to national accountability. He pointedly challenged the narrative of President Tinubu inheriting debris from the Buhari administration, reminding everyone that Tinubu had campaigned on continuing those very policies. Dr. Abati didn't hold back, criticizing the purchase of a presidential jet amidst national suffering, the chaos of concurrent budget cycle, and the pervasive insecurity affecting many parts of Nigerian cities, example from Borno and Katsina. He also touched on issues like currency devaluation and the lack of transparency in various government initiatives, including controversial sale of security joint ventures and the claim of stability in Rivers State. What truly stood out was his historical perspective on agricultural reforms under previous administrations, from Obasanjo to Buhari, underscoring a long-standing pattern of promises without tangible, sustainable results on the ground. My fellow Nigerians, what we just witnessed was more than just a news discussion. It was a powerful call for introspection and genuine leadership. Both Rufai and Dr. Abati, in their distinct style, delivered a unified message. Our government must move beyond mere pronouncements and implement concrete, transparent, and accountable actions. Rufai's deep dive into the agricultural value chain laid bare the systematic inefficiencies that plague our food security, relying on foreign aid, while seemingly beneficial. It's not a sustainable long-term solution for our internal mechanism for animal husbandry, crop production, storage, and logistics remains broken. We need strategic local investment, R&D in animal breeding, and proper infrastructure to curb post-harvest losses. The government needs to support, not just talk about, its own citizens who are trying to build the agricultural sector. Dr. Abati, on the other hand, shone a spotlight on political optics and financial accountability. The image of governors abandoning their state to welcome the president at the airport is a stark symbol of misplaced priority. While the president's international engagements are important, the lack of visible impact from promised foreign investment and the internal decision that seemingly contradict call for public patience, like the purchase of a presidential jet, creates a widening credibility gap. The questions about accountability in various sectors, from humanitarian affairs to security, are not just rhetorical. They demand answers and tangible results that improves the lives of ordinary Nigerians. It's time for our leaders to truly walk the talk. We need less political theater and more transparent governance, less reliance on external fixes and more empowerment of local initiatives, and most importantly, concrete steps towards addressing the foundational issue of agriculture, security, and the economic stability. Our nation deserves true leadership that translates words into meaningful, impactful action. What are your thoughts on these critical issues? Do you agree with Rufai and Dr. Abati? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Obas Trending Gist for more incisive analysis. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.